Where's Scooby and Shaggy?
Like I know where this is going, buddy. First, there's nothing, and then...
There's something.
Exactly. I say we hide out here and only venture out to grab some food. Speaking of which, I've got my emergency hiding snack satchel for just such an occasion.
Good thinking, Shaggy.
I know. Like no one will ever find us down here.
So we are here talking with What's With You, Scooby-Doo podcast host, Scooby-Doo podcast originator, Nick Robes. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yes, the very esteemed foundation of a genre, really.
And Nick is here joining me to talk about a little movie that came out not that long ago. Warner Brothers sent us some preview copies of the DVD, and this is the review.
Sent you. I had to buy mine.
Oh, yeah, you didn't get yours. That's right.
So I can say whatever the hell I want.
Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island was... When did that come out? August? September?
It was previewed in July at Comic-Con, and the final DVD release came out in October.
I think it came out in September at like Walmart or something.
And
then of
Video
course,
on demand.
And then the digital copy came out earlier. It's causing a bit of a stir. Zombie Island is one of the most beloved Scooby-Doo films, Scooby-Doo stories. It was back in 97, was it not?
I think it was 99. It was cusping the millennium.
I feel like it came before Phantom Menace, and that was 99.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Let me just Google this quick.
It was, oh my gosh, how is this so difficult to find? 1998, September 22nd.
Split the difference.
I do recall vividly the trailer for that on Cartoon Network, because Cartoon Network at the time was doing this whole cinema thing, where it was like, the movies, you're going to the movies, and it would be like a little movie theater thing, and it was like, this time, the classic, this time, the monsters are real. You have no idea about Scooby-Doo, do you?
I was working in a movie store at the time, and I remember seeing the trailers for it at the beginning of other movies, and I got really excited, because, I've always loved Scooby-Doo, and it had been gone for a while, and this was, it looked like it was good animation. It looked like, somebody gave a shit about this thing, and they were putting something kind of cool out. And at the time, because Scooby-Doo had been gone for a while, and there were periods where I just wasn't really connected to it. Like, I didn't really watch Pup Named Scooby-Doo when it came out. The whole monsters were real thing, like, that hooked me. I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. Let's get into this. It came out, and I loved it. And it basically rebirthed the franchise, and weirdly afterbirthed my podcast. Like 20 years later.
That's the proper use of that word.
So now we have a sequel, kind of in the spirit of Curse of the 13th Ghost. Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera decided that they wanted to revisit a couple of the classic Scooby-Doo properties. Curse of the 13th Ghost basically capped off that story, also a controversial film, and Return to Zombie Island brings the characters back to, should I say Moonscar Island or Moonstar Island? I'm not...
Well, it is Moonscar. They...
It is. It brings...
Oh, are you worried about spoilers?
Yeah, I guess we should qualify if we have to. This is going to be a spoiler podcast. We're going to talk about details, so if you haven't seen the movie, maybe watch it first.
It is kind of crazy. This is one of the few ones where I'd be like, there is actually, like, kind of a twist, almost.
There's, like, 2 twists.
It's a classic double T.
But there's a couple of twists in Curse of the 13th Ghost as well. And, this is a sequel not only to the 98 Zombie Island, but also Curse of the 13th Ghost, because this continues that story.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It happens right after.
Let me get into the synopsis. I'm going to read the synopsis off the back of the DVD case here, and then we'll give some first impressions, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty.
Great.
Join Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, and the Mystery Incorporated gang as they win a vacation of a lifetime and attempt to put their mystery-solving days behind them. As soon as they arrive at the tropical island and check into the Moonstar Island Resort, Velma, Daphne, and Fred can't help but notice how strangely familiar this island is to a terrifying place they once visited long ago. They soon find that paradise comes with a price when they encounter an army of zombies and creepy cat people. Hop on board and travel with Scooby-Doo and the gang as they unearth the mystery of Zombie Island in an all-new original movie adventure 20 years in the making.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
That's actually not a bad synopsis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Nick, you came to this very recently. You've seen this...
This morning.
Like this morning, yeah. What are your first impressions of the movie?
I would say overall enjoyed it. Semicolon, had a lot of problems. I think the tone of this movie is all over the place and kind of a tragedy. I think it's got some great jokes, and I think overall it's a ton of fun. It's seeing the gang that I love doing their thing in a story that is bananas. Like it makes no goddamn sense whatsoever.
I disagree.
Oh my god, it's hilarious. But I'm excited to get into it.
My first impression, it was a strange viewing experience because I saw it after a lot of other people did, and I saw a lot of reactions online, so there was a lot of hate for this movie, and it's also been a long time since I've seen Zombie Island, so trying to deduce whether it was a spiritual sequel or an actual literal sequel, and also trying to balance the connectivity between Curse of the 13th Ghost and the original 98 film. I think I spent a little too much time parsing out those details while I was watching it, rather than just enjoying it.
I'm going to say that's a fault of the movie, not you, at any stage.
But you know what? I think it's more a fault of the marketing than anything else, because as I was watching it the second time this morning before this conversation, I enjoyed the heck out of it because I saw where my expectations were interfering with my enjoyment of the film. And like you said, it's the gang that you love that's back. It's playing a little bit with the tropes. It's connecting itself to a much beloved iteration of the show. It's continuing, as I've said many times already in the first, 10 minutes of this conversation. Much like we have the 4 original Mook films, and then we have the 2 original cast movies, Monster of Mexico, and is it Legend of the Vampire? I think it's Legend of the Vampire. And then we move into... God damn it, what's the name of that band?
Oh, that band is phenomenal. Like the weird glam rockers who create the vampire. The best.
And then we have
the Coolsville continuity.
The What's New Scooby-Doo characters, which goes to Samurai Sword. And then we move into sort of another iteration. And Curse of the 13th Ghost started us on a new sort of timeline in a way, because however it ties into the greater Scooby-Doo continuity, the last film starts with them basically getting in trouble with the sheriff, and they're told they should stop solving mysteries. And then they get pulled into the 13th Ghost thing, and they go off to the Himalayas and do their thing. And then this picks up...
Hey, remember last summer when we were doing our own thing? Oh my god, all those things were hilarious.
And then they pick up with this one, where they're still in that space. So, like, these 2 movies encompass a new sort of pocket Scooby-Doo continuity, which I really dig. And I think it showed respect, and I think it tried some new things, and I think it was playful, and it was funny. And with that,
I don't think it succeeded 100% of the time, but yes. I like a lot of that, and I like the experimentation, and I like what they're doing. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, just because we're talking about this era of Scooby-Doo, the era of the direct-to-video movie that we seem to be moving into. Who knows if we're going to move out of it, but it seems like I don't know if anybody writing direct-to-video movies gets any kind of feedback from the audience, which I love. I feel like they just keep churning it out no matter what. But this space, this Curse of the 13th Ghost and this Return to Zombie Island, it leans so heavily into the idea that really making it vague whether magic actually exists or monsters actually exist,
yes,
or
agreed.
whether they really don't exist. And it's fascinating to me. I think that kind of gestalt of this era of the direct-to-video movie is great.
They try and stick... we're probably going to bring 13th Ghost into this a number of times. 13th Ghost, controversial ending. Is it or isn't it magic? Is it or isn't it a ghost? It's something that Velma struggles with. It's something that they're just vague enough that it's like, you decide. And however you decide, that's awesome. And Zombie Island does the same thing. Because they talk about the events. You know, Velma says it's an unsolved thing. She has her moment at the end where she's like, swamp gas. And, like, she's clearly in some sort of denial. Scooby is the only one at the beginning who sees the cat creature. And then the cat creature becomes a little bit more present, but it's just there enough to make the events
piss me off.
To make the events of the first film legit and valid. But
maybe it opens the space for that.
It does, and it doesn't decide to shit on, you know, the people who love that movie by saying we're going to retcon that it didn't happen. They're like, we're going to create something that exists in this new Scooby-Doo space with these characters, these skeptical, you know, we're not outright saying magic doesn't exist, but we're not saying does.
We're making an argument for what is happening, like what is actually happening. I like that a lot.
And they actively have the characters.
It totally works.
They actively have the characters wrestle with that, and I think
absolutely.
I think that's brilliant.
Yes. I think the attempt to do it is brilliant.
Why do you
I don't know if it lands.
Why do you think it doesn't land?
Well, first of all, because there is this cat creature, and it is just not addressed whatsoever at the end. It's like, well, wrap that up, we're out. And it was just like, wait, what? Like, what? This isn't a David Lynch movie. Like, you're making your whole goddamn thing about explanations. Why is this not being explained? But that, to me, it was infuriating.
Interesting. I find that so interesting because that was something that for me was like a loving homage and recognition, and the cat creature clearly didn't want them on the island, and you have no idea if there's more cat creatures that are still there. Like, maybe they're just trying to mind their own business and these people are coming back and making a fuss.
Yeah.
Like, you don't...
All of that stuff infuriated me.
And just
all those questions that you're like, I'm loving this, I was fuming about.
So what you're saying is you and me are never going to watch Mulholland Drive together.
I love Mulholland Drive. Interestingly enough, I seriously believe it is very influenced by the Samuel Beckett novel Malloy. But anyways, that's a totally different thing.
How awesome would it be if David Lynch made a Scooby-Doo movie?
I would watch that movie.
Like, that just has to happen.
Because then, like, ambiguity is there. I think that would just be amazing.
But there's enough non-ambiguity here. There's enough disambiguation.
That's my problem, though. It's that a lot of these lines that they're towing are not... They're conflicting in a way that I don't find congruous, and I don't find that incongruity purposeful. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's like the tone of this movie can be summed up in the chase. The big chase that happens, set to a Flower Power song, performed by, Xanthias Bod.
Well, I mean, it's all basically Andy Sturmer, is it not?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who wrote Trap of Love for Mystery Inc., which I love that song. But the Flower Power chase in this movie is a tonal kerfuffle. It is all over the place. And, like, the song is just bad enough to not be good, but not bad enough to be funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not reacting to the world, and it's also, like, ignoring the world. And they do, like, a costume gag, and it's like, well, the original movie, there was none of, like, the costume gag stuff. Like, they couldn't pull a giant hammer out of their pocket in the original movie. That was the tone of the original movie, which they're kind of retconning a little bit. Great. Love that. But it was like, but it wants to be the original movie, but it doesn't. And I found those tonal shifts bothering. Once again, loved this movie. None of these complaints are taking away from my enjoyment of this movie.
I do agree with you that there are some awkward tonal shifts, even when I was watching it the second time and like really getting into it and really enjoying it. To contextualize this for the listener, the first third of the movie is the gang basically encountering mysteries, being brought to Moonstar Island, I'm doing the air quotes, and having made a promise not to solve mysteries, ignoring all the mysteries. And then...
Can we call this what this is? This is not ignoring mysteries as a promise. This is a suicide pact.
And then...
This is people with knives coming at them, being like, there are no knives. I am ignoring these knives.
So after the first half an hour, we find out that the gang has been duped into coming to Moonscar Island because a filmmaker, comically named Alan Smithy, wants to make a film based on what he read in Velma's blog about the original film. And he's been trying to get the gang to come here and solve a mystery with like all these cameras and stuff, watching them in a
he
Big
wants
Brother
to like
kind of way.
Blair Witch Project them.
Yeah. And then after 20 minutes of that, or half an hour of them going, well, you know what, we'll help you finish your movie, we then have the next sort of stage of the plot kick in where there are some other people on the island who have been terrorizing everyone from the get-go of them getting on the island because there is supposed to be a treasure that was hidden on the island, and these people are trying to find the treasure, and everything kind of ties up somewhat clumsily, somewhat elegantly at the end, and then we're left with the mystery of, do the cat people really exist?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that
what you
those
said
shifts
at the end is the most apt.
and
Somewhat clumsily, somewhat elegantly. That's... Yeah.
those shifts are the things that I feel, you feel the bump.
Yes.
Like, maybe less so moving into the film, but you are being asked to sort of change your gears while you're watching the movie twice. And that is a little jarring. But I think the film's internal logic and consistency stays solid. So I feel like that there's a bit of a tug of war going on with the viewer and the filmmakers.
Yeah. It's like when you watch Batman 66 and, the line comes up where he's like, what weighs 5 pounds, lives in a tree, and is very dangerous. And Robin's like, a sparrow with a machine gun. He's like, right you are, chum. Like, you're living in that space. Like, I love that space. I'm with you. I'm not questioning that. I'm like, that's what that riddle means. And this movie, it kind of tried too much to, like, bop in and out of that.
That's fair.
Which, like, gave me some of, like, the kind of, like, okay, all right, maybe. Like, the first half of this movie, when the whole, like, promise thing is happening, I was like, too much is being made of this promise. Like, because also, ultimately, like, I should have never asked you to be who I am is almost, like, ham-fistedly put into the end. Like, the moments where this movie shined was when it was ridiculous. Like, the fact that they just recapped the movie Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island in the middle of the movie for, like, 3 minutes. And the entire time, Shaggy's just like, yeah, I was there. And they keep explaining the movie. That was great.
It's so... It fits with the character. It's kind of meta. Like, I do feel there is a great intelligence at work here, or at least cleverness in this script and in the execution of this film. And by no means do I think that anybody involved with this movie is trying to disregard or disrespect Zombie Island and what it represents for so many fans.
And I'll be honest, that might be the problem. There might be a little bit too much reverence to the old thing, and that's the handcuffs on this script. You know what I'm saying? Those are the highway cones not allowing you to go like completely off the road.
I think the way I view this, though, is clearly like some committee at Warner Brothers Animation decided, let's make a sequel to Zombie Island. So they hired Jeremy Adams to come in and write a script, and he probably was like, okay, so these are the things that I need to kind of stick to. This is the framework that I'm operating within. And I feel like he probably had a number of limitations. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he worked really well within those limitations. I mean, he clearly, I think just by looking at the way the story is told and the elements that were kept and the elements that were disregarded, I feel that these were like bullet points that he was working with. I mean, I'd love to talk to Jeremy at some point. Jeremy, if you're out there listening to this, come on the podcast.
Jeremy spoken.
Podcast today.
There were so many great jokes in this. The whole like east, west, north of the Mississippi, and on the Mississippi. Oh yeah, the riverboat wraith. That was great.
The gluten joke.
The gluten thing I thought was pretty funny. The massage bit. Shiatsu? No, Great Dane. That was just like, I was like, what is this movie? That should be this whole goddamn movie, is them doing Abbott and Costello bits.
We don't have pudding. Where did you get pudding? We brought our own.
Oh my gosh.
How can you think about eating at a time like this? Yeah, don't think, just do.
The whole thing with setting up them being actors, I was dying laughing when she's like, yes, and over here. I was just like, oh my god, she's doing an improv bit?
Yep.
I was like, this is phenomenal.
Everybody's so attractive.
And then they were like, you're not? That bit I felt a little bit weird by, which then it like panned to like the most watered down version of the Ren and Stimpy like painting close-ups. I was like, oh, weird. Okay.
It does that slow pan from foot to head with Shaggy and Scooby.
Yeah. And they're like uglier than we typically see them. It was like, oh, okay.
And you know, weirdly, one of my favorite moments in this whole film was seeing the gang wet, with their hair wet and flat.
I have that note. I was like, this is crazy and awesome.
Wasn't it? Like, it's just not somewhere that they often go.
No, it was the weirdest detail, and I was so into it.
And there's something about it that made those characters more real to me, because you got to see them slightly off model. And when you see something slightly off model, I feel it gives it this sort of greater context, because it's not just, this is how you're always going to look, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a little bit of realism, and it was some fun pepper.
And it was just well animated too. This movie's really well animated.
Yes. Yeah. I think in retrospect, at the time I took a note of like, why are these zombies so cartoonish looking? I get it in retrospect now, because they weren't real. Just looking over like my real time reactions of this movie, and some of them are just like, I'm like, is this whole thing staged? Kind of a dick move to put it on Scooby and Shaggy to not solve the mystery. Like, I was on an emotional roller coaster. But yes, I think it's a little bit brighter than the original,
yes.
Which, whatever, they're doing something new. It's, you know, this continuity of the one that they started with the 13th Ghost, and that's kind of the look of it.
I also feel like, I mean, I mentioned the meta bit earlier, and having them talking about all of the mysterious elements that they want to talk about but aren't because of their promise, I sort of feel they're acting as ciphers for the audience as well. And they're showing you they're not dummies, you know, like, they're picking up on all of this stuff, like,
right.
The stuff that's the similar and the stuff that's different, and I think it rounds them out in a way, and it fits them into the story in a way that when you get to the end and you have Velma saying, you know, the swamp gas, and it contextualizes it, it frames it so that you know that Velma is like gaslighting herself. Like she just can't accept certain things, and she's just explaining things away. Like Daphne says that stuff about, oh, well, but this happened, and the cat creatures went away, and something disappeared and dissolved, and Velma's like, how is any of that?
Well, and clearly Fred is a true believer, because in his fantasy about the Mystery Machine at the beginning of the movie, they are straight up just like taking out the Universal monsters.
Yeah, and
like he is like, we are taking out Dracula. This is what we've been doing this whole time.
And I feel like that whole opening too, it's kind of telling the audience what kind of movie this is right off the bat. No pun intended.
Because he turns into a bat.
Like they bring in, not only do they bring in the Universal monsters, but they bring in Space Kook. They bring in the Creeper. Like, there's classic monsters, there's Universal monsters, and there's, it's the entire Wickles family.
Oh my god. It's Young Man Withers. That made me laugh so hard.
And there's almost this desire to get the nerd rage out in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, sort of click all the boxes.
Yeah, like do all the things, do all the poking that's going to make people go, this is
not the movie for me. Yeah. I'm out. Okay, great. For everybody left.
Exactly.
Yeah. It is interesting. There's sort of there are a lot of meta elements in this in general, or like it seems like they wanted to make a meta movie, but once again kind of had these handcuffs of like, well, it still has to be like it's like a movie, like it still has to be a Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movie. But like there are so many things. I mean, you talk about like David Lynch. There are a lot of like, well, it's a movie about a movie. Oh, like, and at the end he's like, well, I don't want to do movies anymore. Oh, I thought that was your big thing. Oh, to never get a note again. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, is that the screenwriter telling me that? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just enough of those questions of like, who is saying this? Who put this in your mouth? It raises that question. You know what I'm saying?
It's a movie about making a movie inspired by a movie.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Charlie Kaufman.
The onion just keeps unpeeling.
Dude, I would watch a Charlie Kaufman Scooby-Doo movie. That'd be ridiculous.
And I'm absolutely willing to accept that. Like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. I do think that there's a lot of craft here, and I think that it's a really interestingly put together film. And I think there's a lot of stuff in there to appreciate. There's stuff in there for multiple viewings. There's stuff in there for people who have never seen a Scooby-Doo movie before in their life. Mm-hmm. This is the thing that says, here's all of the breadcrumbs, follow them back where you will. Plus, here's all of the things, all of the Post-it notes or pins for the people who know the franchise. Here's all the callbacks. And here's, the jokes and the story for just the people who want to sit back and enjoy it. And you can either take all of it or none of it or some of it. I feel it's kind of a grab bag. And I could see that maybe not working for people. And I know, keeping in the spirit of 13th Ghost, like I said, 13th Ghost was controversial in its own way. Written by Tim Sheridan, not Jeremy Adams, but they clearly had the same sort of brief as far as what to do. I think they both brought their A game, and I think they both succeeded on a lot of levels. At least for me. And, I'm not going to tell somebody you're an idiot for not liking the movie, because I can see the problems. Like when you're saying this or that, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally with you. It wasn't as much of a problem for me, but I could see how somebody would be like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, once again, I enjoyed this movie immensely. It is not Citizen Kane. If you go into this being like, I'm going to poke holes in this, like, congratulations. Like, way to go, Robert Altman. Like, they are pre-poked, by the way. Like, they are there. The holes. Nobody is hiding that shit. But, like, I think if you want to have fun, yeah, totally. This is not top of my direct-to-video list, but it's definitely a great time. I think all the stuff with the van is hilarious. There's one line, I don't think it was meant to be that funny, but it cracked me up when they're like, Alan Smithy, the famous film director, he just goes, sure. I died at that one. I was like, yeah, let's call it that.
And that's a joke that works on a few levels, right? Like,
yeah.
I also thought one of your problems with Scooby-Doo films is you're tired of the gang faces a problem, the gang breaks up, the gang comes back together again. And this was an interesting take on the gang was put in a position where they couldn't be the gang the way they like to be the gang. So you sort of have that element of being out of place or out of sync with something, but they were still the gang. Like, they were still together and they were still friends. They were just no longer connected to the mystery solving and stuff. And
what do we talk about? Velma looks out the window and just goes, there is nothing else.
It's like, we're bad at small talk. And I find it so interesting that there's this theme in this film of the gang finding themselves, but they don't have to break up to be in the position of being lost, and they don't have to get back together to be in the position of finding themselves. They're still acting as a unit, and I really dug that take on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And calling out the shit, like in the van with the small talk, that was just so classic. I love it when a writer can call out some of the silliness or the tropes and do it in a loving way that doesn't, again, discredit what came before. That's also not the same tired meta jokes about Scooby-Doo that we've literally been hearing for 30 years. Exactly. And I'm really excited about this new crop of people who have been working on the properties, because probably even from What's New Scooby-Doo, even though I think What's New Scooby-Doo succeeded less than Mystery Incorporated and Be Cool Scooby-Doo, you could tell the people who made those shows weren't like, well, screw everything that came before because that was old and silly. It was like, what worked before and how do we improve it, or how do we build on it? And I feel like that's what's kind of going on right now in the franchise. And I think we're at that uncomfortable point for people again, because they're not comfortable with how things are being framed, and the dust needs to settle again.
Well, yes, absolutely. Once again, it's a thing of like, there is so much Scooby-Doo out there, and they've tried so many different things, and people have a real strong selective memory for what they'll remember is Scooby-Doo and what is not. This
is true.
And I think that this, is not as jarring as, frankly, any of the direct-to-videos that came out. I mean, if you think of like Alien Invaders, or what Abracadabra Do is like the most bizarre movie. And then you go from like the tonal shift of like that with like the Griffin to like the samurai sword, where it's like an ancient, they have to get possessed by a dragon. Why does that dragon have a sword? Because he's a freaking dragon, does not need a sword. Still harping on that a year later. It's just the most bizarre thing. And like now they're like, you know what, we'll take all that, but this is where they're jumping the shark.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and like Franken-Creepy, and there's so many left turns, and
yeah, the wrestling alone.
Kiss. A lot of people hate the Kiss stuff. I actually really dig that movie.
Yeah, let's talk about a twist. They're interdimensional being. What? The monsters are real. Holy hell.
Or are they? Interdimensional beings?
Oh my gosh. That was something else, man.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, well, I think that movie's hilarious. The concert at the end is basically what you want the whole time. You're like, wow, how did we not get to this sooner?
I had to ask you, and this is even part of why I kind of wanted to have this conversation with you. One of the shout-outs that they make in this movie is to the reluctant werewolf.
Yeah, saw that, of the unsolved mysteries.
And I was like, what does Nick think about this?
Well, that is the only one that they could do, unless like he's a teenager and he's also like he's teaching like as I don't even know how you reverse engineer that. I mean, that would be insane if they tried to do Ghoul School, because like he's a teacher, that he's an adult.
I know the next one is going to be like Knights of the Round Table or something. I would have loved to have seen a trilogy with 13th Ghost, Zombie Island, and
Reluctant,
like
where he has
the
to
still reluctant werewolf or something.
he has to go back and do the race again. What were the Frank Welker and Rob Paulson in that? The Beeble and Bubble? No. Oh my God, what were they called? That was ridiculous. They'd be back for sure. Werewolf, where are you? I gotta get the name of these guys. Was that a successful thing to me? Well, kind of. Brunch and Crunch. How did I forget that?
And honestly, like 13th Ghost is no better a show than Reluctant Werewolf. Like,
no, I would say Reluctant Werewolf is better.
And I
There
thought
is
they
a followable plot and stakes.
I thought they did like a competent job with 13th Ghost. So I think it would have made a beautiful trilogy, and then they could have moved on to like a whole new stage, a new pocket continuity for the game.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, I have no idea what's coming after the King Arthur one coming up next. Who knows? They could revisit it.
It's crazy. I feel like, for me personally, I feel like it was a mistake releasing these movies in the same year.
Could have been.
I think if they had given it just a little bit more time, couple more just cracks at that script to make it a little bit tighter, tonally, I think that a lot of the issues could have been taken out. But, I mean, whatever. I liked it. Just really quickly, just going over the Reluctant Werewolf thing, I would love to have seen Googie again. The weirdest character in all of Scooby-Doo-dom. Just like this like omniscient girlfriend who's just like, look, I can get you out of this.
I love that idea of Scooby-Doo-dom.
Thank you. Here was another thing that the tonal shift from Zombie Island to Curse of the 13th Ghost. In the original, you have these beloved songs. Like, literally, you can find how many forums where people are like, did they release the soundtrack? I love the songs by Sky Cycle. Which, whatever. And to have the Flower Power songs in them, maybe what also struck me about that was to put in songs at all, you're making a comment about the previous songs. And the songs from the previous movie, people didn't love them because, oh, there are songs. You know what I'm saying? It was because there was this weird cash grab in that movie to be like, how do we get the kids in here? Punk rock. And that, to a certain extent, worked. Somehow it worked. And I think to not have that, I mean, I'm not saying put Jay-Z in this movie, but to take that task a little bit more seriously than, well, the originals had Flower Power songs, so we're going to put Flower Power songs in, to look at that dynamic of, well, no, it was that they did something weird with it. You know, I'm trying to think of what the middle, like, direct-to-video movies, there were 2 direct-to-video movies that had, like, the most amazing title sequences. I want to say it was like Camp Scare maybe it was Camp Scare and the one before it. There were just like fantastic title sequences. Those had, I think, chase songs that were like their own thing. And it's like, oh, if you try and do that, that's where that comes from. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that you do something to reference something but not go all the way, and to also not, it's too in the middle. Any of that rambling made sense.
I see what you're saying.
Good luck.
I didn't mind the music, but I don't have as much of a connection with those Zombie Island songs.
Yeah, sure. You're not putting it on in the car and you're like, and it's terror time again. Didn't look it up in my head.
Like, even at the time, I don't know, maybe it's the age I'm at. I am a little older than you.
You weren't a huge Sky Cycle fan?
I was not a huge I don't even know who Sky Cycle is. Did they do anything other than the Scooby-Doo movies?
Apparently they were integral in the Napster, the takedown of Napster.
Okay. I know in my conversation with Steve Bramson, like he said that Warner Brothers already had like a deal kind of set up. For Warner Brothers, it was, we want to use these bands and we're going to put them in these things, which is something they continued to do with the franchise for years and years and years.
You talking about Billy Ray Cyrus?
Well, Billy Ray Cyrus, Third Eye Blind. What's her name? Did Jennifer Love Hewitt do like one of the songs?
You are correct, sir.
And they used some artist in What's New Scooby-Doo that I think was
Simple Plan?
No. Well, yeah, Simple Plan, but
Treasure of Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
There is it was on an episode of Scooby-Doo's or Don'ts that I was listening to where they were talking about this musical artist in the episode who apparently was actually a real singer who...
Here's the thing. If you are trying and failing to pull Smash Mouth, that is making me laugh very hard. Who is that musical artist? They're a real musical artist. Smash Mouth?
No, it was a female vocalist, kind of like a Ariana Grande kind of character.
Oh, interesting.
And there was an episode all about her.
Oh, crazy.
And the mystery surrounded her.
There was an episode, Smash Mouth. Although I will not say it's Smash Mouth. It's Steve Harwell, let's be honest. The rest of the band was not showing up for that.
That's kind of all I've got to really say about this movie.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the tone of ham-fisting in bands just because they have a contract. That is way more Scooby-Doo. That is an essence of Scooby-Doo right there, of just like, how do we do this? I don't know. I mean, you watch that interview with Joe Barbera, and he just starts talking about Scooby-Doo, and he's like, you know what else that would have been funny? Scooby-Doo at Woodstock. How funny is that? And you're like, that is Scooby-Doo right there. It's just dudes being like, ah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, once again, I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, if you're going in it to poke holes, those holes are pre-poked.
For me, it was really enjoyable. I really kind of want to sit down and watch this and 13th Ghost together because I feel they're sort of a piece. Yeah. And honestly, I haven't enjoyed two movies like this for a while. I mean, I've been catching what's been coming down the pipe, but probably the last one that just surprised me was Scooby-Doo and the Rock and Roll Mystery. I've enjoyed them, all of them, but I think it's when they take the weird left turns, because there is a level of comfort that I want, but I feel that the format of a film isn't predisposed to giving me that comfort because it's 70 to 90 minutes. If I want that comfort, I'm going to watch, the 23-minute television shows because that's where you squeeze in that bang, bang, bang Scooby-Doo story, right?
Yeah.
So if you surprise me, if you keep me interested, if you show a love, so much of my reactions lately have been just showing a really balanced love and respect for the franchise while giving something new. As long as it's not reductive and insulting, I usually get into it. And that's how I feel this movie is. And I would happily recommend this to anybody.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, if it takes it seriously and has something fun to say, I do enjoy that, and I think that's what this movie did well. The only note in reality that I have is two words: more Elvira.
Yeah, that was such a surprise and such a welcome surprise.
Hell yeah, get me more Elvira.
I was really hoping
in everything
that would be, we're going to show you Elvira, and she's going to show up like in the next one or something because this is the intro, and she's going to have a bigger role. I don't think that's going to happen, but I wish it was.
I mean, but here's the thing. It's on them. Cassandra Peterson's showing up. Like, if you call her, she's there. Like, she's great. Yeah. But I think that's. Did we just peter out? What just happened?
No, I don't think we petered out.
Yeah, I've got to. Let me just take a look at my notes really quick. Oh. When they're in the cave, Alan Smithy is like, Scooby, I need a close-up. And then Scooby proceeds to do a medium shot.
With a slow zoom.
But it stays a medium shot. It is never a close-up. You see the top half of his torso that entire time.
Scooby's not a cameraman.
Nope, he has no idea what this dude's talking about, and yet he keeps thrusting the camera into Scooby's paws, which is the best.
And hey, Scooby doesn't talk too much in this movie either.
Nope, he doesn't.
It's
which is how I like it.
It's just enough.
Mm-hmm. There's a real balance with that, which is tough.
Something they're not doing on the TV show right now.
Right. I did have a note in real time that was like, oh, so end of Act 3, they're jumping this hotel, and then they jumped the hotel way too early. I was like, they set that up like it was going to be the big stunt piece, and then literally they jumped the shark with it. I was like, okay, that's fun.
Subverting expectations, man.
Yeah, right? That is for sure what happened. The cat thing, what is his... See, the problem is they just had him doing shit, and I was like, he doesn't have a plan, he doesn't seem to have any motivation, I don't know what this cat wants, I don't know why this cat is here, and I was waiting for a payoff, and then there was nothing, and I was like, I just watched presumably a supernatural creature, maybe, try to murder people for no reason.
It doesn't want them there.
Really? Because I don't know. I honestly cannot tell you, after watching that movie, with any certainty, what is up with that cat. That Darn Cat, available on Disney+, both the original and the remake. Think I haven't watched both.
It's a backdoor pilot to the... I was going to say the cat creature.
Black Panther?
No, I was going to say like the cat creature who wore tennis shoes, but that's the computer who wore tennis shoes.
By the way, just quick digression. Frank Welker's haircut is terrible in that movie. If I was Frank Welker, I would be like, you want me to do what now? I'm sorry, this bowl cut is not happening. Everyone else in the movie gets normal hair. Everyone else, I get this weird-ass bowl cut. No, thank you. I get why he went into animation.
So Scooby-Doo, Return to Zombie Island, that's a yay for you, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. There are very few Scooby-Doo movies that get a nay from me.
This is true.
I would say Pirates I probably had some problems with.
I think it's the same for me. I think there's very few that I would just outright be like, no, that was bad. Like, Goblin King is one of those for me. But
yes,
I think it boils down to, for me, not necessarily like that it's a great film or whatever, but is this a Scooby-Doo movie that I will revisit? And will I be entertained watching it again and possibly again? I feel that way about the last two films. And Zombie Island surprised me, and I'm quite happy with it.
I don't know if I'll revisit this one as much as, say, like Witch's Ghost, but definitely more than.
See, I was never a fan of Witch's Ghost.
I like Witch's Ghost a lot. I think the plot twist is totally insane, and that whole
it was so
ending
interesting
montage. So dark.
So interesting talking to Glenn Leopold and finding out, like, which of those movies they actually were, that came out the way they wanted them to. And to find out, like, the struggles they had on Witch's Ghost and the Cyber Chase kind of explains so much of what happened.
Obviously, Cyber Chase is one of the ones that I would not recommend.
Sometimes I like going back to the weird ones that aren't very good, just because they're weird, or there's an element in it that I really dig.
Yeah, Monster of Mexico. Weirdly enough, I watched that one. That might be one of the ones I go to most frequently. It is not good, but it is insane.
But that's also the great thing about this franchise. There's so much of it.
Yeah, and
you can love and hate it at your leisure.
Yep. because if you like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? You've got that. If you prefer Pup Named Scooby-Doo, it is not the same show. And yet somehow it is. I don't know what Scooby-Doo is. It's crazy. It's insane to me.
I feel that there's a deep dive investigative journalist series to investigate there.
Yeah,
what
elements what elements actually are integral for it to be Scooby-Doo, and what because I mean, sometimes it's the gang. Nah, they got rid of them. And it was still Scooby-Doo somehow. It has to be the dog. Okay, so you just have a dog named Scooby-Doo? Is that it? Well, there's mysteries. Well, not necessarily. Sometimes they're just battling evil. Yeah, madness.
All right.
Great. Well, thank you for having me on. This has been awesome. I had a lot of opinions about this movie, and I'm glad that there was somewhere where I could voice them.
Well, I did too, and I wanted to do a review, and I wanted to be a voice, put out some positive vibes for this movie, because there's a lot of discontent, there's a lot of hate for this film.
Yeah, and let me just say, as far as that is concerned, just to clear the waters, those people can go screw.
And, you haven't done a direct-to-video episode in a while, and kind of dragging you back to the to that particular
genre.
I had the word. Idiom? Is idiom the word?
No. But I like it.
Bringing you back to that format of talking about direct-to-video stuff.
There you go.
I miss him. And no, I don't expect you to write me a song for this.
Weirdly enough, it is probably the format that I know the most about as far as just the movies are concerned. Those videos are probably the things that I've spent the most time with, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thank you so much for coming on. As you said, it was super fun for me as well. Thank you, Warner Brothers, for sending the copy of the film to me. That was super appreciated, and I super enjoyed it. And thank you, listener, for checking the podcast out, as usual. Nick, if anybody wants to continue following you beyond this episode, where can they find you?
There's What's With You, Scooby-Doo out there. There's, 130 some odd episodes of the regular podcast where I have a guest on and force them to sometimes talk about Scooby-Doo.
Emphasis on the sometimes.
Yeah, it can go into some weird places. What else? You can find me. You can find me on YouTube. Me and my girlfriend do weird videos where we go Christmas shopping and such. That's Adventures with Brie and Nick on YouTube. You can find us there.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, we have a lot of opinions between the two of us. Most of them centered around Christmas. Thank you very much for having me, Mike. I had a blast.
Cool. We'll catch you next time.
Absolutely.
Ba-da-ba-da.
We noticed when the ghost appeared, she flew around instilling fear. Exactly how she did was still unclear until we saw the broken flight rig of the balladeer, whose name is Kyle! Kyle! The hovering balladeer! Kyle! Everybody cheer! This is how we solve the mystery. This is how we solve the mystery. So in summation, this narration's my donation to the art of mystery solving dictation. And here's what the bad guys say when they play where the law forbids.
Would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
This is how we solve the mystery. Bye.